What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to a 2-minute warning podcast. Today, we're going to be finishing our first round draft grades for the NFL Draft 2025. We're going to go 17 through 32. We've already done 1 through 16. If you haven't seen those, make sure you go check out that video. Link down in the description. And yeah, without further ado, let's hop right into it.
So at number 17, the Bengals took Shamar Stewart, the athletic edge rusher out of Texas A&M. So he was a guy who neither of us really liked too much. I know he was mocked to the Packers a lot. You kind of mocked him there just to make me upset. But he didn't have very much production, 1.5 sacks in both of his past 2 seasons. But I don't know. This pick doesn't seem quite as bad just because they need a replacement for Trey Hendrickson. And if he does play this year, he's going to be a good mentor. So with that being said, I ended up giving it a D+. I know it sounded like I was talking up the grade a little bit right there, but I did not like the prospect quite that much. I liked him more than Malachi Williams as an athletic project, but I just don't think you take a project at number 17 overall when you have so many needs on the defensive side where they were so bad last season.
Yeah, I'm actually giving it a D, so even lower than D+. Purely because if he did hit his ceiling, I mean, it would be extremely high, and it would be way higher of a pick, so I don't want to give it anything like an F, but I mean, this could easily be an F pick. I would assume he's going to bust. I just don't think he's going to hit his ceiling. Very low production over the last few years in college. And yeah, he's got a ton of athleticism, but it's like usually that doesn't translate. Obviously, we want to take those shots. We've seen guys like Nolan Smith who are able to hit that somewhat, like no production in college, but really come out and be a good player in the NFL. But it just doesn't happen too often. And also, I know you just said the opposite, but I actually liked Malachi Williams more. If you're going to take one of the two, I think he played better than Shamar Stewart. Yes, he's a little less athletic, but I think he played better than Shamar Stewart while being injured. So it's like, why would you take the other guy? But I think, this is just a bad pick, especially for the Bengals who need defensive help right now, not someone that's going to develop in the future. I think a pick like James Pierce here would have been an amazing pick. I would have given them such a high grade. But instead, they took this guy that I just think isn't going to work out. And if he does, that's great. But you need help right now. You're trying to compete right now with this, legendary offense that you have. But it doesn't matter if you can't do anything on the defensive side of the ball. And I just really feel like it was a big letdown to see them go for a project pick in the first round, especially with the 17th pick, which is decently high up, right in the middle of that first round. You could have gotten a couple good edge rushers or even just a good secondary player. Get a Jaden Barron, Will Johnson. Obviously, Will Johnson has a lot of injury concerns, so he fell. But any of those players, I feel like, would have been a much better pick for them.
Definitely. And the one thing I don't see many people talking about for Shamar Stewart is, he picked which athletic workouts he wanted to do. All the, 3-cone, short shuttle, these things he didn't do. And on tape, you can kind of see his agility. It's just not as good as, his high-end speed and, I don't know. I just think that there was a reason why he didn't end up doing those drills.
And didn't he lose 20 pounds before the combine or something?
No,
or gain 20 pounds? Shamar also gained some weight, I think.
I didn't hear about that, so I don't know.
Maybe I could be totally wrong. I might be thinking of Scorton, but either way, I just don't love the pick. We just like to take a moment to ask you guys to subscribe, like the video, comment down below. We're trying to build a community out here. We love responding to you guys, talking to you guys about football, and we're really trying to make this podcast dream a reality. It's free. You can always change your mind. We'd really appreciate it. But let's hop back into the video.
Yeah. At number 18, the Seattle Seahawks took Gray Zabel. I really like this pick just because they have no guards on their team or centers. So he's going to play one of those 3 interior spots for them. And we kind of mocked this a few times just because of how big the need is. And Zabel's super athletic, so I think he could work out. He also has a decent floor. He was my 30th player on my board, so it is a little bit of a reach, but for how much they needed it, and I'm almost just impressed they actually invested on that interior, which is one of the reasons why it ended up being so high despite the reach for my grade, which is going to be a B-.
Yeah, I'm actually going even higher than that. Obviously not the best lineman on the board. But a lot of that, I think, is weighed on positional value. Obviously, he's going to be sliding into that guard spot, and tackles are just a lot more valuable than guards. So I feel like, guards kind of get overlooked in that aspect. But with how bad the Seahawks interior is, and you just signed a guy in Sam Darnold who is so bad at filling the interior rush. He is so bad when he gets rushed from that interior. So even if it is a reach on the big board, taking a player, the best available that can play guard, or that's going to play guard for you, it by far the biggest need on your team, in my opinion. I think it warrants a B+ from me, because I just think it was such a big need. And I think Gray Zabel's still a good player, even if he's not phenomenal. He's going to be a good player for years to come. And like I said, they just really needed that help inside.
Yeah, at number 19, the Buccaneers took Emeka Egbuka. This was a bit of a weird one, pretty surprising. Their one position they don't really need is wide receiver, so I don't know why they took Egbuka here. The rest of their draft I really like, just not this pick. He was also, I think, my wide receiver 6. I feel like he's going to be a pretty good player, just never like an elite guy, which obviously this is a team that doesn't really need an elite guy since they already have basically 2 of them.
Yeah.
So this is not obviously the worst landing spot, but I just don't understand why their defense being so bad last year, they didn't try to make that better at all, and there was a lot of good defensive players still on the board.
Yeah, for sure. We were both shocked when they read Emeka Egbuka on that card, because it's just like, what? You took they have arguably, a top 3 wide receiver room in the entire NFL right now from top to bottom, and it's like, why would you address that, your biggest safety position in your entire roster? You're like, let's address that in the first round. And don't get me wrong, I actually really like Emeka Egbuka. I think he's got the highest floor out of any of the receivers in the draft, and I don't think it's close. You just sounded everything, the players and coaches rave about him, how amazing of an interview he was. Ohio State raves about him. Like, he's just a great guy, a great player. But again, it's like, I understand taking best player available, but 1, he wasn't the best player available, even though he's a great player. 2, there's a point where taking best player available isn't good enough. When you're picking at 19, first of all, you need to be drafting for fit, in my opinion. You can take best player available more often when you're in that position to already be competing, but also 2, you need to take the fit when your wide receiver room is that good. You don't need to take another receiver. Now you're probably going to have to shift McMillan out of the lineup for most snaps, who had a really, really promising rookie year. And it's really tough because, Chris Godwin likes to play in that slot a lot. McMillan likes to play in that slot a lot. And now you got Egbuka, who likes to play in that slot a lot. And it's like, that is just so crowded. I don't get it all. I gave it a C- because I still think Egbuka's a really good player. I just don't like the fit at all, and it really bothered me that they took it, especially when Jhad Campbell's on the board. I felt like that would have been a perfect fit for them, and I probably would have just given them an A right away. So I just don't get it. It makes no sense to me.
So at number 20, your Denver Broncos picked Jhad Barron. This was another one we were really shocked at.
Oh, yeah.
You could see his live reaction. We weren't expecting it. We were thinking it was going to be a skill position player to help out the offense after they kind of invested on defense that was already super good last season. You didn't think they'd go with their first round pick and go on to defense. But I like Barron as a prospect, even though I had Will Johnson over him. Clearly, if I knew the injury stuff was quite that bad, he probably wouldn't have been, even though the tape, Will Johnson's better. I ended up giving this just a B+, just because I like the prospect. And he's going to definitely upgrade that defense, especially even just year 1.
Yeah.
But you have some good players that are now being pushed to this side, like Riley Moss going to be playing less snaps. He had a promising at least start to the season before getting hurt. So
yeah, I think that's totally valid. And like you said, Will Johnson was he was on my 1 too. He was above Barron on my board. There's no shying away from that. But I think overall, we just had no idea about these injuries. I mean, clearly this injury is bad. Like, you don't see a player of that caliber fall out the first round for an injury that's like, oh, he sprained his knee. Like, this is something bad that they're not telling us. But, like, if he works out, I think there's an easy possibility he's better than Barron. But I think they're both phenomenal prospects, and I think they're both great. For me, like you said, it was super, super shocking. I was like, what just happened? Because I was just expecting to hear Amarian Hampton, which... If you haven't seen our running back rankings, go see that. I don't hate him as a prospect. I just don't understand why he was going in the first round. Really happy we didn't take him. But overall, I was after calming down from the hype of taking this guy I had no idea we were going to take, I watched some more Jhad Barron film, and I really like the player. I mean, he's a great prospect, like you said. But like you said, players get pushed to the side. I was ready to give us a B+ too, actually, but I did boost it up to an A-. I know I'm biased and everything, but let me tell you why. The reason I boosted up to an A- is because of the versatility. I think we can play him in so many spots. So he played, I think, 800 snaps at outside corner throughout his career. He played like 400 in the slot, 600 in the slot, 400 at safety, 200 at linebacker. So he plays all over the field. And I think that is I don't think there's a debate right now. We're going into the season as the best defense in the NFL, in my opinion. I think it should, like, adding Greenlaw, You don't like Hufanga, but if Hufanga goes down, we can slot him in at safety. If Riley Moss is getting picked on, let's play him more at outside. If McMillan's getting picked on, let's put him more in the slot corner role. If Singleton's getting picked on, let's put him at the middle linebacker role in the slot, in like the nickel package. So I think that he can just play so many spots, and it's not necessarily going to be pushing people to the side as like I originally thought, but it's more going to be, let's give this player just a few less snaps, get him a couple rests while we put Barron here. And then let's move Barron here and take McMillan out for a little bit. And then it's just going to be swapping around the field. And I think having versatility is so valuable in the NFL. And I think that we're going to be able to make him work and be a great player. And if he hits his ceiling, we're going to have a ridiculous corner duo with him and Surtain.
Definitely. So at number 21, the Steelers took Derek Harmon. It's kind of where Shedeur was supposed to go. But I'm going to give this just a B just because I had him a bit lower on my board, but I was higher on him than most people. He's super versatile, and I just like they didn't pick Shedeur. They didn't rush the need at quarterback when there wasn't really a prospect worth taking here. And I was kind of worried they would just because it's kind of what most people were mocking them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who else they could have taken. I know I saw a lot of Steelers fans who were like, this was their prospect they wanted. So, I don't know. His film is just super good. He doesn't miss tackles. He can win in all ways in the pass rush department. Not super athletic, but Cam Hayward's 35?
Mm-hmm.
And they have Keanu Benton there too. But those two are going to be a really good defensive tackle tandem once Cam Hayward ends up retiring.
Yeah, no, for sure. I gave it a B+, a little bit higher. Mainly because they got a player I think is better at the same position than the Dolphins did 8 picks earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And so that has to add some value to it. Also, just avoiding the common trend of reaching on quarterbacks, like you said, is very valuable. I mean, it's overall a good pick, in my opinion. I was pretty shocked because I was so set on them going quarterback or doing something stupid. But, with Cam Hayward definitely going to be retiring soon. Like I always bring up, I know I bring it up all the time, great mentor to bring in at the last year or two for Derek Harmon. Like you said, he looks great. It's going to be a good fit for him, I think. I think another pick they could have made that might have been better, assuming that he's going to be healthy, of course, would be Will Johnson. I think they need a little bit of secondary help. I'm not a big fan of Joey Porter in my person. I don't think he's a 1. I think he's a good number 2. I don't think he's going to be necessarily a good 1 for a good defense throughout his career. So I think that would have also been a good pick. But Derek Harmon's definitely not a bad pick by any means. This defense is still going to be good. Another pick that would have been good as well is Jhad Campbell. I think he also kind of fits there. I didn't really ever talk about that because we always mocked quarterbacks to them. But just slotting him at that middle linebacker spot, I think would have also been a pretty decent fit for them next to Patrick Queen. So, but obviously I think with Hayward retiring, D-line's more of a priority for them, which is why they went with Harmon. But overall, a really good pick, and I think if you're a Steelers fan, there's no complaints there. I think you should be happy you got him over Shedeur.
Mm-hmm. And at number 22, the Chargers took one of your favorite players, Amarian Hampton. He goes to play with Najee Harris, who you didn't really comp him to, but you kind of said he's like him in the way he won't ever go for a 60-yard touchdown.
Yeah.
So they don't really have the top-end speed or explosiveness necessarily at running back to make the big plays they might need. I didn't think they needed... I don't know. Najee is not a guy that I would look to replace in the first round, at least. Mm-hmm. He's good enough. Obviously, if there was Ashton Genty, that's different. But, with these late round or first round, end of the first round running back prospects, I don't really, if you already have a running back in place, I don't see why you should take them. You should wait till, the third round. What if they took Cam Scadaboo in the third round or something like that? I don't think it was really worth a first round pick. Neither of us had him inside our top 3 running backs. Mm-hmm. So I ended up giving this a D-. I hate the pick. They didn't need a running back super badly. They could have just kept Dobbins, and I don't like the player either.
Yeah, I gave it an F. I think it's bad.
That's crazy.
I don't think you can get much worse than this because, like you said, just keep Dobbins. I don't get it. And I literally think if they just waited, knowing where they picked him a second round, I think there were better running backs available. Or just trade back. I know that, it came out afterwards. If you're watching the draft, you saw that the Chargers' time went down to 0. It were 1 second left, and we're like, what's going on? Why are they not putting the pick in? Well, it's because they had a trade back set with the Eagles if they were going to trade up and take Jhad Campbell at 22. And then eventually they said, never mind, we're just going to take our player. But you could have traded back, and the amount of spots they would have traded back is about equal to where the Giants traded up. I think it's around there. The amount of spots is very close. So I think you would have gotten something like a second, maybe a third for that trade up, which is super good value to trade back and get a better player, in my opinion. So I think it's a terrible decision to deny the trade, because we can always say, oh, they could have traded back. Well, we know they could have traded back. They had a trade back ready, and they said no. They took a worse player, in my opinion. They took a running back when they could have taken a different position that I think would have been more valuable. You know, they could have taken Golden right there, paired him up with McConkey. I think that would have been really cool. Or just, you know, any position I think would have been better than running back there. If you believe in Najee, even believe in him. You don't need to take another running back that doesn't complement him at all. Like, they don't complement each other whatsoever. You didn't get a change of pace back or anything. If you trade back to 31, take Henderson there, I would have given this such a high grade. I would have been so happy with that for them. As a Broncos fan, obviously, I'm happy that we get to play Hampton twice, because I'm not a huge fan of him. But I just don't get the pick. It's my first F. It might be my only one. I'm not sure, but I just really don't understand it. It makes absolutely no sense to me, and I think you can't really get much worse than that. So I'm going to be harsh here and give him an F.
That's crazy. You're an Amarian Hampton hater.
I mean,
now.
you just gave him a D-. It's not like I was that much crazier.
I mean, it's a big difference.
It's really not.
You can pass with D-, right?
That's true.
I think so.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, at number 23, the Packers took Matthew Golden.
Okay.
I was so happy with this. I think there was two other players that, like Will Johnson and James Pierce, those were the only players I would have picked over Golden here. And obviously, I had no idea about Will Johnson's injury being quite that bad.
Right.
I think the pass rusher need was bigger for the Packers than the receiver need. They ended up addressing it, I think, in the 4th round, so I don't know. I'm kind of nervous about this defense, but Matthew Golden's a really fun player. We needed a guy with a lot of potential to end up stepping up into that number 1 receiver role. So a guy like Egbuka, if he was here, would have been a worse pick just because, well, I feel like he's a better chance at being a good player. I don't think he's a better chance at being a great player, which right. I think there's a pretty good chance Matthew Golden's a superstar for the Packers, and he's going to be a great pairing with Jordan Love, even though I think him running the 4.29 might have hurt him in some ways. Like with every single video I watch where people are like, chill on Matthew Golden, it's like, I don't see the 4.29 on tape.
Yeah, which you don't.
Yeah, but like before he ran the 4.29, no one was saying he was slow. He's not slow. He's fast. But
he is fast. He's just not 4.29 fast.
Yeah, but like when you're bringing that up every time as a negative, it's like he's a great separator. He's good at everything. Him doing this one thing is adding a weakness to him, even though he's not slow. I don't get it, personally.
Yeah. I mean, no, I think everything... What grade are you giving him? An A, I'm guessing?
Yeah, probably an A.
I mean...
Yeah, he was my wide receiver 1. So
yeah, don't get me wrong. I think that Golden has a very good chance to be a great player in this league. I mean, we've talked about this multiple times since the pick. The only worry I have with him is that he does feel like a boomer bust guy to me. Like, I don't think he's going to be average. I think he's going to be great, or I think he's going to be bad. I don't know. I don't know. I just think he needs to improve his yards after the catch for his play style, in my opinion. He needs to learn how to use that speed on the field, and I'm not saying that is a negative because he's not slow on the field, but he doesn't really, like, for how fast he is, he doesn't have any yards after catch ability, in my opinion. I think in the last 2 years at college, I saw a stat that said he has 4 missed tackles forced. That's awful. That's so bad for a guy who, you know, does have that speed. I know you're saying, oh, it's a negative because of that speed. Yes, I think that's bad either way. For a smaller receiver, he's under 6 feet tall. You need to make some guys miss. And while he's a great separator, I love that about him. His route running is amazing. He's got sure hands. I love that he's got sure hands. He doesn't drop the football, which is definitely something the Packers need. And I think that was a big gift for you guys. But, you know, it does scare you a little bit with the lack of production. We took Pat Bryant in the 3rd round, who sucks, and I think he had more production than Golden. And that's not saying that he's better than Golden. He's not. Like, I'm not saying that Golden's bad. But when you do have lack of production, that is something to worry about, because it's like, what happened. And obviously we have to look at the fact that he was with Quinn Ewers and he overthrew him in like 7 different big gains and stuff. But it does worry me a little bit about him being A1 in this league. But great pick overall. I'm giving it an A-. I think that it's a perfect fit. I would have loved for them to take James Pierce over him. I think that would have been an A+, just because of the value and everything. But overall, a good pick, and the Packers fans should definitely be happy and excited, because first round receiver we've had in 23 years. And, you know, he's got tons and loads of potential. Would not surprise me at all for him to be a great receiver in this league.
Yeah, definitely. But I think that it's almost like since he ran that 4.29, I feel like he could unlock that next level, the next gear. So I just don't get how. Well, and
I think that is a big reason that he could boom. Mm-hmm. Like, to me, that's where a lot of his potential rises, because if he unlocks that yards after the catch ability with that speed, like, dude, he's gonna be incredible with that separation ability. That's ridiculous. But it's just, can he unlock that and move his game to the next level?
The most common comp was Stephon Diggs,
really,
that I saw, and Diggs, like, they win similar ways, but Diggs did that at running a 4.55 or something like that. So I don't know. I just think that was a phenomenal pick, and people are kind of overthinking it a little bit right now. But at number 24, the Vikings took Donovan Jackson. I was
shocked.
Yeah, he was not my top 50. Yeah. So I don't know. I like that they added to that interior so they don't have to start. I forgot his name. Blake Brendel. Obviously, it's a need there, but they could have added some secondary help here. Could have gotten Malachi Starks. I think that would have been a phenomenal pick for them. I'm glad they didn't, obviously, but I think Jackson could be a fine player, and he'll probably be starting for them for his whole contract. But like a starting caliber guard in the first round, really? Like, I don't know. I didn't like this pick very much.
Yeah, I mean, it made no zero sense to me when there's great players at positions of needs left. Like, you could have gotten a great pick in Malachi Starks, like you said. You could have got a great pick in Will Johnson, assuming he's healthy. I know I keep saying that, but it was really hard to know in the moment, how bad his injuries are. It's still hard to know. Like, we really don't know what's going on with him. But, I still would have liked Will Johnson with the injury risk better than this pick. I would have liked taking a tackle and transitioning him to guard more than this pick. I just don't really get it as much. It didn't make that much sense to me. I would have liked taking an edge better here. I would have liked any defensive thing. I probably would have liked more. I just think while they do need help in that interior, taking a guy that wasn't supposed to go in the first round at all and probably late second round doesn't make any sense to me. But so I ended up giving it a D. I didn't like the pick at all, and I thought it was just bad.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the next two picks, they're both trade-ups. So, like, why didn't the Vikings try to trade down?
Yeah.
And also, obviously, the Eagles were also a team trying to trade up to get Jhad Campbell. Like, I just don't understand why the team that wants to take Donovan Jackson at 24 wouldn't be like, well, he'll probably be there at 30, whatever. Like,
yeah,
I don't
just
get
trade back.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
What grade did you give it?
I think I'm going to give it a D just because I feel like he has a good chance to be a player who plays for them for a while.
Which is, like, cool, but well, 24?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit early for that. It's more of a second-round pick.
Yeah.
At 25, the Giants traded up for Jackson Dart. Did they give up, like, what, a third? And
not much. They might have given up a second. They might have given up his second.
It wasn't ridiculous for trading up for a quarterback.
No.
I just don't like the player they actually ended up trading for in Jackson Dart, personally. He was my quarterback 5. He ends up going as quarterback 2. You could have gotten Jalen Milroe, Dylan Gabriel in the third round. Obviously, Shador has some problems, so I understand why you might not want to take him, but I just don't think Dart has quite the upside that you'd want to take in the first round. But, like, he gets the opportunity to sit, and I really like that for him. I think he has a much better chance to succeed here than he did in a lot of the other landing spots. So just because he's a quarterback and he does have a chance to be able to be a good starter potentially, and he's in a good situation to do that, I'm going to give it a C-. But
wow. Okay. Well, our picks.
I feel like I'm being a bit generous.
Our grades are completely different. I just completely disagree with like almost everything you said. What I do agree with is that like yes, phenomenal landing spot for him. I think this is the second best spot he could have gone to outside of the Rams, which apparently the Rams were trying to take him, and that's why they jumped the Rams. Which does kind of make me sad because I kind of wanted to see him on the Rams, learn behind Stafford for a year, and go with McVay. But I don't think Dable is a bad option by any means. I really hope Dable stays because this is the only quarterback Dable's ever drafted. I really want to see what he can do with it. Not having to deal with Daniel Jones' contract. I think Dable gets the short end of the stick having the Giants GM be an absolute terrible dude. He just does a terrible job. Like, let's be honest. He's so bad at his job. But Dable, I think, is one of the most underrated coaches in the league right now. I really, really like him, and I think that he's going to do great things with Jackson Dart. In my quarterback ranking, I had Dart at 3, and the reason for that is he is a project. He has to sit for a little bit. The thing is that it really depended to me where he was going to go. If he went to the Saints, he's like my quarterback 4 or 5, And if he went to the Giants, well, now I think he has the potential to be the best in the class. Because if he sits behind this, I really think he could do something. And I don't think a lot of people. I don't think any other quarterback is in a good situation outside of him. I think that Cam Ward's going to bust.
I think Milroe's in a good situation.
Milroe doesn't count to me because he's so bad. What?
Oh my gosh.
And like, I don't understand what your obsession with Milroe is. Like, literally has nothing you can work with, in my opinion, outside of running. Okay, if you want to put him at running back, go ahead. I don't want him playing quarterback. I think Dart will be a good player. I'm predicting it now that he went to the Giants. I'm very confident he will be a good player. I gave us an A- because I really think this is their franchise quarterback. As long as Dable's going to stay here, you can clip me on that if it's a terrible take later, but I really do think this is a great pick for them. They didn't give that much up to trade up, and they still got Abdul Carter at 3. I love the Giants draft over here. Just great draft in my opinion. Like I said, really has a lot of traits that you want in a franchise quarterback, and I think he's got a ton of potential in a great situation. And with Cam Ward, I've said it many times, I think he's going to bust, in his situation. I think Dart has a really good chance to be the better quarterback of the two.
Who do you think has the best chance to be the best quarterback in this class?
Right now, probably Dart.
That's crazy.
But I think that if Gabriel gets to play, then
I think Gabriel gets a chance.
If Gabriel gets a chance, he's still my QB1. I think he's the best in the class. I've already said that. But with them drafting Shedeur, it does worry me. I think it's still Dart's in the best situation, and Dart still has way more upside than Gabriel, in my opinion. So right now, I'm predicting that Dart is going to be a very good quarterback in this league.
With Gabriel, I think he definitely has. He's going to get a chance this year before Shedeur, just because he's
really
taken
hope
in the
so.
third round. You see the reactions to the coaches. Do you see them taking Shedeur?
They were so upset.
Yeah, it's like they don't want Shedeur. They're kind of like almost forced to take him. I kind of like taking him. I like the pick.
Yeah.
But
I just didn't like that they took both of them, to be honest.
I like that. I think one of them should have a decent chance at working out.
I don't know. I don't like them taking both because I want Gabriel to succeed.
I think this was a good situation for Gabriel just because he day one, in my opinion, is the best quarterback on the roster unless Joe Flacco rolls back the clock to like a couple years ago with the Colts.
Well, I agree, but it doesn't matter if like he's not going to get the chance. Like, I feel like with the media and the fans, I just am afraid the Browns are going to give Shedeur an unfair advantage. And if they do, that's fine. But if Gabriel gets to play, he's still my QB1 as of right now, especially for this year. I mean, Dart's not playing this year, and he shouldn't play this year. But I think Dart has more upside. I just think Gabriel's a better quarterback right now. I just don't know if he's going to get the best chances.
Okay, well, let's move on to number 26. Another trade up for the Falcons. Mm-hmm. I'm going to give this 2 separate grades.
Okay.
I'm going to give it just the player, the value, the situation, and then like the dumb trade up. So with the trade up and the player combined, I'm giving this a D-.
Whoa.
I love the player, but is he worth 2 first-round picks?
They didn't give up 2 first.
They gave up this first-round pick that they drafted him with, and they give up next year's first. So that's using 2 firsts on one player.
They gave up next year's first, and they drafted him.
Yes.
They didn't use 2 first-round
picks.
No, no one has ever said that in their life. So you're saying that they used 3 firsts on
2.
Travis Hunter? They used 2.
2.
Right.
Because
they drafted him and gave up 5 and another first.
So they gave 3.
No, so they gave up 2. So the Falcons only gave up 1 first to get him.
Yeah, but like they still end.
Because you have to think about it this way. They used the first. They got a new first in return for giving up their first.
Okay, so they gave.
So they only used
he's
1.
Worth an early second and a first-round pick next year. I don't think he's worth that.
I mean, I think it was a good trade-up, but we'll get to my grade in a second.
Next year's class is supposed to be super stacked. I think this Falcons team is probably going to be picking in the 18 to 24 range, something like that.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I feel like you could have just not done this. You could have just taken him at whatever pick they had before instead of Jalen Walker, in my opinion. But the player, I'm giving this an A+. Like, I don't know. I just think the trade-up is so bad. I hated the trade-up. I hate trade-ups.
You're over-hating on the trade-up. I mean, if you're going to give an A+ the grade, then you can't give a D- for the trade-up. That makes absolutely no sense. Because if you trade up for an A+ player, then it's a good trade-up.
Did they trade up, like trade down to the... I don't know how to explain this. Did they go down to the same spot like the Rams? The Rams trade? Did they end up moving the same amount of spots?
As who?
As the Giants moved up to get Dart?
No, it was way more.
It was way more?
Because it was the Falcons' second-round pick, which was like 18 or something, or 15 or something like that.
Yeah, but like...
So it was like 10 more spots.
I don't know. That's not worth a first.
No, and
I don't know
I
why
think
the
it was
Giants,
bad value.
The Giants got such a good deal.
I think it was bad value, but my grade for both combined is an A. Because I think Pierce is arguably the best edge in the class. I think he's
Whoa.
Outside of Carter, okay? we're not including Carter. I think he's arguably the best.
I think he is the best edge outside of Carter.
Okay, so you think he's the best edge outside of Carter. He's arguably a top 10 player in the entire draft. Just has some character issues. And if he turns into that, this is a great trade-up for them. They have a huge need at edge right now.
Yeah, but they took an edge at 15. Why'd they
They took a better edge at 25.
Yeah, why'd they take an edge at 15, then trade up using next year's first to get a better edge?
Because they clearly believe in both of them. And now if both of these players work out, they have an insane edge duo for like 10 years.
Is crazy.
Okay, but I believe Pierce is going to work out, and Jalen Walker has potential. So I think that you can't just say it's a bad pick because Jalen Walker was a bad pick. This was a phenomenal pick.
I think they should have just gotten James Pierce and not worried about wasting another. Like, they could have had their second-round pick and their first-round pick this year to use. I'm explaining this really badly. But they give up a lot of value, and they ended up with Jalen Walker, who I don't really like, and then a great player who they could have just taken at 15 and not bothered.
You also have to look at it in a vacuum, though, in the sense of if you ignore the Jalen Walker pick, the trade-up for James Pierce is a good pick for them. Like, yes, they gave up too much, but even if they gave up, let's say they gave up a second, that's an A+. I'm not giving them an A+ because the trade-up was a little too much, but it's not a bad trade-up because they got such a good player at such a big need for them.
I just don't know if they think Jalen Walker's worth a 15th overall pick. Is it such a big need anymore?
I mean, they still need a second edge rusher.
If Ebiketie, he's fine. They picked him in the second round a couple years ago. He's been a good pass rusher.
I mean, they really need pass rush help, like bad. Mm-hmm. Like, they need a dominant pass rusher.
Then why'd they take Jalen Walker?
Well, they took James Pierce.
I don't know. It's just
they probably wanted
pick.
both and knew that Walker was going to go before Pierce, so they wanted to get Pierce later. Because think about it this way. How bad would it have been if they took Pierce at 15 and then traded up for Walker with that same capital? That would have been 10 times worse.
No, but he would have went before they could have traded up, so it would have been better. Because they
would have had to trade up even further, and then they would have given up even more. So they gave up less for both the players they wanted.
That's such a stupid way of saying.
No, I just think the trade up for Pierce, you're underrating it. D- is insane for an A+ player. Like, I don't think you're valuing it enough.
I just don't. I hate trading up, especially when you're trading up for like.
I think trading up is good when you're trading up for a good player.
Edge.
So you think if we traded up for Ashton Genty this year, that would have been a bad move? Yeah. You're insane.
Let's say trade up to 5.
We would have traded up to 8.
Okay, he wasn't there at 8.
Okay, that's why we didn't trade up. But I'm saying if we traded up to 8 to get Genty,
you would have had to give up a first next year.
Yes, and that's
that
so
terrible
for a generational running back.
Yes.
What?
Trading up is almost always bad.
No, dude, it
doesn't work out.
We don't have holes on our roster, and running back was a huge hole, and we would have gotten a generational player to fit in that hole. And now you're going into this next year with a great team.
You think RJ Harvey's the best running back?
No, I think he's the third best in the class.
You think he's better than Hampton, who went in the first?
Yeah, I do.
So what's the point in trading up for a running
back?
Because
the difference between Harvey and Genty is insane, and I think Harvey's great, but Genty is a generational running back.
In the teens next year.
That's just not true. If you don't think we're making the playoffs, then you do not know ball, bro.
I don't know. I think you're overrating your roster right now.
I think we need to move on from the Falcons.
Yeah, probably. All right, at 27, the Ravens took Malachi Starks. I'm going to give this an A just because I think a safety isn't quite as valuable as other positions, but you got a great player. I think Darius Washington is their starter outside of Kyle Hamilton at their other safety spot. Now you got Malachi Starks. Upgrades their biggest weakness outside of pass rush on defense, which if they probably would have taken James Pierce if he was here. That's probably why the Falcons traded up. But they ended up getting Mike Green, so
it's fine.
They fixed both. Like, I don't know. It's a great pick. So I'm going to give it, an A.
Sorry, taking a drink. But I really think that this is an A+ for me because Malachi Starks is so good. He is everything you want in a safety. I mean, he is ridiculous. Like, he looks like he has that Madden ability that lets you jump and go crazy as a safety. I think it's called Acrobat or something. Like, he looks like that when he's trying to catch an interception, genuinely.
Is that still in the game?
I have no idea.
I don't think so.
But my point is that's what he looks like. Like, he looks like he's making a Madden play when he catches some of these interceptions. He's got better like ball tracking skills than a lot of the receivers that went high in this draft.
Like Pat Bryant.
Like Pat Bryant. Genuinely though, he does. And
we've talked about Pat Bryant like 8 times.
I know. Pat Bryant mentioned. But I really think that he's just so good. And like you said, they really need another safety. But now you've got him and Hamilton next to each other. And that's just unfair.
Like, it's going to be like the best safety tandem in like a year.
Dude, and if Malachi hits a ceiling, it might be one of the best, if not the best ever. Like, you have to think about, most teams don't ever have 2 superstar safeties. Because if you have one superstar safety, that's lucky. There's never that many superstars of safeties in the league at the same time. Because most players that play DB and are really good, they go play corner. Because you get paid a lot more. Well, not a lot more, but you get paid more. And so I think that they go play corner, and so you don't have all these superstar safeties. I mean, we got a few like really
3.
good, yeah, but like
that's crazy.
That's it. And so I think that having 2 on the same team is just unfair, and ridiculous. And like you said, they short up the edge later. Easy A+ for me. I think Malachi Starks should have gone so much sooner. We've talked about quite a few teams that should have taken him. I mean, should have gone to at least the Vikings. The Vikings would have gotten A+ for taking them there too, I think. So, yeah, and especially combining that with Mike Green later, just an easy A+ for me.
And at number 28, another head-scratching pick from an NFC North team, Tyreek Williams to the Lions. I didn't watch him when I was watching Interior D-line. I tried to watch a lot because the Packers need that. Obviously, they don't seem to think they need that. But I tried to watch a bunch before the draft. I didn't end up watching him just because he was like a late second round guy, and his name wasn't that cool in my opinion. I watched a couple of players just because I don't know. I just got the vibe from their name, you know. I don't know. I didn't have enough time to watch him, but just from what I've read, he doesn't seem like a guy I would take in the first round, especially when they need an edge rusher really badly. There was multiple on the board, like Mike Green, who obviously fell for interesting reasons, and then like Donovan Jackson was still on the board. That's kind of a guy who I thought they'd take, but I don't know. I just think an edge would have been just such a better pick than reaching on a defensive tackle who's not supposed to go to like late second round.
Yeah, it made no sense to me. I'm giving this a D-, purely because like if you want to take him that bad, trade down or take someone else here and try to get him in the second. Trade up in the second for all I care. If you really want him that bad, it makes zero sense to take him here, especially with the players available. You know, obviously they probably didn't want Mike Green because of the allegations and stuff, which is fine. Pass on Mike Green, but like you said, they could have taken it as a Raku type of player. I think if you add some secondary help, that's not a bad idea either. Maybe you draft a Will Johnson. I keep bringing him up, I know, but it was just so weird that he was falling. Obviously the injuries, but also would have been an amazing fit for the Lions there. I honestly would have liked a lot of different players there. I think even taking a player that was just like best player available that wasn't necessarily a need. Like if they took Jhad Campbell, would have been a much better pick just because of how much better of a player he is. And I mean, they're not like stacked at middle linebacker or anything. So
they have a lot invested at middle linebacker right now.
I mean, like I think he's day one. I mean, it's hard because they've got Jhad Campbell, who they spent I think early second on, right?
First.
It was a
Mid-first.
first. Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, but yeah, my point is that best player available would have been a much better pick than taking whatever the frick that was. I just hated the pick.
Yeah, and at number 29, the Commanders took Josh Connery Jr. A bit of a weird one when Josh Simmons is still on the board. I can't believe he fell so far just because, I mean, he was like easily a top 3 tackle in the class, and you have all these linemen going before him that just aren't better than him. I don't know, it just didn't make any sense. But Connerly was a guy who, he's super well-rounded, so I like the pick here. I think they spent a second-round pick on, I can't remember his name right now, but their current right tackle, but he's obviously not going to play now probably. Yeah. And they trade for Laramie Tunsil, just trying to get Jaden Daniels a good offensive line. I think I'm going to give this B-. I don't know. I like that they ended up investing in the offensive line. I just wish they took Josh Simmons. I think that would have been a lot better of a pick.
Yeah, I gave it a C+ for the same reasons exactly. I was so pissed that, Josh Simmons fell to where it did, but we'll talk about that in a little bit, obviously. So many people agree Josh Simmons was the best on film, and then he fell this far, obviously because of injuries, but he seems to be completely back to normal. Obviously, we need to see him on the field for that, but he seems to be doing really well with that. It just makes, Connerly's a good player. Just didn't make sense. I'm always going to give you a harsher grade no matter how good the player is. If there's a better player at the exact same position available, it makes absolutely no like I can't give you a great grade for taking a player that's worse at his own position. Like it makes absolutely no sense. That's the same reason we gave Will Campbell such a low grade. You could have taken Armand Membu, who's like way better, and he plays the same position. And now, now they're probably not going to play the same position, in the NFL. But like it doesn't make any sense to me, and I'm always going to give him a harsh grade. So I ended up going C+ purely because he's a good player. That's what pushed it past the average C.
Yeah, and at number 30, the Bills took Maxwell Hairston. They did need a corner. Obviously, they didn't re-sign Rasul Douglas. They need someone next to Christian Benford. But I would have liked it to be someone else. I watched Hairston because obviously he was one of the most commonly mocked players to the Packers for some reason. He's fast and he's kind of good in man, but his instincts kind of suck. I think he would have been like a late second rounder if he didn't run a really fast 40. So I just don't think – I think this was a bit of a reach, but – this is one of the only positions they really need, and I think this is a good spot to address corner because normally high-end corners don't go very early. Like the first corner off the board here was 20 to the Broncos. You look at other positions, they obviously are consistently going top 5, top 10. Corners don't really do that, so this is a really good spot to address it. I wish they picked someone else.
Yeah, I wish they picked Will Johnson, obviously, for their team, but I'm still going to give it a B+. I don't hate Hairston by any means. I think he's a good prospect, not a great one, if that makes sense. I think that, like you said, he's really good in man. I think it's because of that athleticism. Corner is one of the only positions that I actually care about what the 40 time was because I think it can showcase a lot of that speed, which is arguably the most necessary on a corner because the break speed that you have to, when the wide receiver cuts, you have to break so fast and you have to get there so fast. No one understands how hard it is to play corner. I think outside of quarterback, it's easily the hardest position in the NFL. Ridiculously difficult. And if you don't have that break speed, then you're going to struggle in the NFL, and I think Hairston has that. I think that, like you said, his instincts kind of lack sometimes, but I think that's something that you can try. Obviously, instincts those aren't really coachable. But I think there's a lot of issues that you can coach up. And with how good he already is in man, putting him as your second corner, I think he can learn a lot and become a good to great player. Not necessarily the highest ceiling in the world, but you don't really need him to be a superstar. You just need him to help in that secondary. And I think that's why I gave it a B+ because it's a good pick, not anything special.
At 31, the Eagles traded up to grab Jhad Campbell. It is a trade up by one spot. That's kind of weird. Could have just lost the Super Bowl, gotten that pick anyway. So I just don't understand the move.
Why would you purposely lose?
I'm just kidding. But it's just a 5th round pick. I still think it was kind of unnecessary. I'm still going to give it an A+ just because Jhad Campbell, mid-first round guy to me. Super, super good, prototypical linebacker there. Tackling ability, athleticism. He just has everything you want in a linebacker. I don't think they need linebacker to that much, to be honest. They have Nakobe Dean, obviously behind Zach Bond. And Dean was good when he played, just like he got hurt. They don't have that many needs, but what if they took an edge rusher like Mike Green here to replace Josh Sweat? I just think that's the only real knock we can give on this pick.
Yeah, I'm surprised you put it an A+ with how much you hate trade-ups, but...
It's a 5th round pick.
Yeah, I know. I was just kidding. But I really think that the trade-up made sense, actually. Clearly someone else was trying to jump them to take Campbell, or at least that's what they were told. And when you're in such a good position... and they have so much depth on that roster anyway, I don't think they're worried about that 5th round pick. They'd rather get the superstar in Jhad Campbell. This is my only, I don't even know if I'm allowed to do this, but this is an A++ for me.
You can't do that.
Well, I'm doing it.
I would have given it to Walter Nolan.
Okay, well, you can pretend you did, because A++ for me, the biggest steal in the first round, in my opinion. I don't think it's close. Ridiculous that they got him at 31. I mean, why would we let the Super Bowl champs get even better? It's not fair. He's a ridiculously phenomenal player, and they didn't really give up anything for him. So, really, really phenomenal pick for the Eagles. Obvious pick, but sometimes the obvious pick is the best one, and that's what the Eagles GM has gotten famous for over the years. Everyone thinks he's the best in the league, and all he does is just take the consensus board, and it works out when people start dropping. Jalen Carter, Cooper DeJean last year. He took Quinion Mitchell, who I thought should have gone earlier. lots of pick players that he just does this for, and it continues to work. It makes you wonder, will someone do it in the future, please? That's not the Eagles.
I mean, to do that, you kind of have to pick at the end of the first round, and if you have a bad GM, that's just not happening.
Well, you think someone like the Lions would have done it or something, but...
No, they'd rather have Tyreek Williams. But also another reason why I didn't like the Falcons pick.
We're going back.
Yeah, I was thinking about this. They had like 4 or 5 picks. Like, I thought they'd trade down for sure, just because
they need more
picks, and they traded up. So, and I think I should probably dock the Vikings grade just because they had like 4 picks. And they took a bad player instead of trading down to get more picks.
Yeah,
like, what are you doing?
And you could have gotten the same players.
Most likely. Maybe the NFL was higher on him.
I think if you're going to give one more F, it's easily the Vikings, in my opinion.
Vikings and Lions, terrible drafts.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yep.
And at 32 for the last pick, the Chiefs took Josh Simmons. This is easy A+. He was like top 15 on my board. A great player. Obviously has some injury concerns, but... It's really good to take a shot on that in the 32nd pick. I mean, tackles go super early, so getting him here is insane. They need to replace Jawan Taylor. He's terrible. They signed, I forgot his name, Jalen Moore.
Yeah.
Maybe he could play right tackle. You could keep Simmons at left. I don't know. You could figure it out between those two. Obviously, I don't want Jawan Taylor to be on the field. He sucks. And he's the only player the refs don't like on their team. So this is just a great pick for them.
Yeah, easy A+ for me too, which sucks because I hate the Chiefs, obviously. But I was chanting, please, anyone but Simmons. And when it was Simmons, I was really sad. Really wish the Commanders took him because, obviously Connerly's still a good player, and that's probably who they would have taken. But at least it wouldn't have been Simmons, who literally has superstar tackle potential if he's healthy. And they got him at 32. At arguably their biggest need on their roster right now was tackle. So really, really disappointed as a Broncos fan, but easy A+, obvious pick, the one they should have gone with, and they did. Made the right pick. I mean, and they got a 5th-round pick to do it, so, added A+ with a 5th-round pick in there. So just a great pick for them, and I'm really upset about it. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Make sure you go check out the 1 through 16 draft pick grades. Link down in the description. We really appreciate you guys watching. Make sure you leave a comment what you disagree with, what you agree with, and make sure you hit that subscribe button. We really appreciate it. Have a good one.